Before we dive into rotations, let's take a look at an interesting Frost Death Knight talent. It's called Runic Empowerment. The way Runic Empowerment works is it gives your Frost Strike a 45% chance to activate a random, fully depleted rune. Now, the consequences of this talent are that most of the time in your rotations, you'll be alternating between blowing your rune cooldowns first and then using Frost Strike to refresh your rune cooldowns. And you'll see this trend in both of the rotations that we're going to cover in this video. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and move on to the single target rotation. The opener for the single target rotation is pretty straightforward. You can see on the screen right now that you just want to start off by getting your diseases up. That's where we cast Outbreak, and then you start spamming Obliterate. You should be able to get 2 or 3 Obliterates in, and then you're done with the opener. The rest of the rotation consists of following the single target strategy priority system. You can see on the screen the guidelines for that system. Let's go over some of the bullets there. You want to use Obliterate when killing machine procs. You want to prioritize Obliterate whenever possible. You won't always really be able to use Obliterate when killing machine procs, and you'll see this when we demonstrate the rotation. Otherwise, you'll be using Frost Strike when killing machine procs. Another guideline for the single target rotation, always keep your diseases up at all times, because Howling Blast automatically applies Frost Fever. All you really need to do to satisfy this guideline is to use Plague Strike. And a guideline for that is to, if you want to refresh your Plague Strike dot, do it about 4 or 5 seconds before it's about to expire on the target. The next guideline, also pretty straightforward, is to use Howling Blast whenever Rime procs. Obviously, it's a rune-free Howling Blast. And the last guideline is to use Frost Strike during the period where all of your runes are on cooldown. So in other words, you actually use Frost Strike to refresh the rune cooldowns, and this is consistent with the Runic Empowerment talent that we just described. Okay, let's go ahead and demonstrate the rotation on this target dummy. Start off by buffing ourselves with Horn of Winter, get in close, open up with Outbreak, then start spamming as many Obliterates as possible. Usually this is 3. There's another Obliterate. Take advantage of Rime by casting Howling Blast. Now we're going to go back to spamming either Frost Strike or Obliterate, depending on the situation. As you can see right now, we're spamming Frost Strike. We just got Obliterate available. Use Obliterate, Howling Blast, Obliterate again. We took advantage of that while Killing Machine was active. Go back to spamming Frost Strike. Okay, get Plague. We want to get Blood Plague back up. Take advantage of Killing Machine, Obliterate, another Howling Blast. We want to take advantage of Rime. Then go back to spamming Frost Strike like this. Okay, another Obliterate, another Obliterate, another Obliterate. Wow, another one. Go back to spamming Frost Strike, another Frost Strike, another Frost Strike, Obliterate, another Obliterate. As you can see, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to save Obliterate for when killing machine procs so that it's a guaranteed crit. That's a little tricky. Also notice that our Blood Plague fell off. You want to keep that up at all times. So there's a number of things that you want to try to balance while you're conducting this rotation. But ideally, if you ever use Obliterate, ideally you'll use it when killing machine procs, but that doesn't always happen in practice. See, in that case, okay, now see they're both, actually no, that's a Rime. Okay, now see how they're both active now? Killing Machine, that's the ideal case when you use Obliterate. But that'll really only happen about half the time. Okay, like that was an example of Killing Machine where Obliterate wasn't available. Okay, now here's a case where they're both available. Killing Machine and Obliterate are. So as you can see, it's kind of a little bit of a tricky rotation. Again, keep your dots up. Spam Frost Strike in order to refresh your runes, and then take advantage of procs. And that pretty much sums up the single target rotation for Frost Death Knights. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the AoE rotation for Frost Death Knights. Let's go ahead and walk through the first 4 steps of the AoE opener. You can see the steps for that scenario on the screen right now. The first 3 steps entail casting Howling Blast. The first 2 times you cast Howling Blast, those casts will consume both of your frost runes. On step 3, when you cast Howling Blast, it'll consume one of your death runes. On step 4, we're going to use one of our unholy runes to drop a Death and Decay. That'll set the stage for our AoE rotation. The rest of the rotation consists of following the guidelines for the area effect strategy. You can see the bullets for that strategy on the screen right now. Let's go ahead and walk through it. In the AoE rotation, we're going to be making use of Howling Blast instead of Obliterate. Obviously, because Howling Blast is an AoE attack, it strikes more than one target, whereas Obliterate is a single target attack. Next, cast Howling Blast whenever Rhyme procs, for obvious reasons. It's a rune-free Howling Blast. Next, we want to tab target around and apply Plague Strike to targets on an individual basis. If you spread Blood Plague and Frost Fever around with Pestilence, it does 50% less damage. So you get a little bit more damage if you apply a Plague Strike individually. And the last bullet is to use Frost Strike in between rune cooldowns. And this comes back to the Frost Talent Runic Empowerment. This is how we, in between rune cooldowns, this is how we occasionally reactivate one of our depleted runes. Enough theory, let's go ahead and demonstrate the AoE rotation. Let's get in close, start spamming Howling Blast like this, as many as possible, drop Death and Decay, spam Frost Strike in between Howling Blast cooldowns. As you can see, we spread quite a few. Now, let's try to spread Blood Plague around individually with Scourge Strike like this. And then go back to spamming Howling Blast as much as possible, like that. And use Frost Strike in between Howling Blasts. Okay, let's reapply Blood Plague, like that, and then go back to spamming Howling Blast. It looks like our Death and Decay just came off cooldown. Let's drop another one. And that is the gist of the AoE rotation for Blood Death Knights. Now that we have covered both of the rotations on target dummies, let's move on to a real-life example in a dungeon so that you can see how to play a Frost Death Knight in the context of a 5-man dungeon.